make no mistake about it, it has to be about both environmental impact, societal impact on the one side, and financial return.
Rolf Kjærgaard, CEO of Vækstfonden. Thank you very much for joining Mazanti-Andersen. How has the first year been?
Thank you so much. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you and share with you our view of the ecosystem and my personal view of the ecosystem. Coming on the back of a quite turbulent first year as a CEO, let me be frank about that. It's clear that when I started as a CEO, I moved from having been part of the executive management group at Vækstfonden for many years. So I came with quite a loaded background. But of course I had my ideas and my vision and my ambitions for where to take this organization and take this ecosystem and our participation in that, along with everyone else at Vækstfonden. And that progressed pretty smoothly for about half a year. Then COVID-19 happened, and what an impact that has had on not only Vækstfonden's thinking and the way we've acted and responded, but everyone. This is a global impact, and of course that has led us to rethink, altered direction, and develop new ideas, new programs, new initiatives, pretty much on the fly. So quite turbulent.
One note on that, from my perspective as lawyer doing venture investments, I can tell you that we do not see a lot of impact of COVID-19 on the ability to invest into the Danish ecosystem, which is obviously a very, very good news. One of the reasons for that is the relief packages presented by Vækstfonden, and on behalf of the Danish ecosystem, thank you very much for some extremely well thought and well prepared and well executed relief packages. Could you give me a few words on that? Say, what have your thoughts around the relief packages, the dilemmas that you were in when doing these relief packages?
Thank you, and I want to return that and really share with the entire ecosystem that this is a relief package, not to Vækstfonden, but through Vækstfonden to the entire ecosystem. And I think it's been a very uplifting experience against a terrible background of this health crisis impacting the entire world, but uplifting in the sense that we've really seen the ecosystem come together. Different players all coming together and saying we need something to happen because the ecosystem is suffering in the near term, and if we don't remedy that, if we don't build a bridge across that, then the ecosystem will definitely be detrimentally impacted in the long term. I see the relief packages really as a joint effort. We've had close partnerships with investors, both institutional ones, the venture funds and business angels. We've had sparring sessions with entrepreneurs, and we've all shared our experiences and trying to build an analysis of what is really needed, and then that has been shared with the political system, with politicians, with the Danish Folketing, and with the Danish government. And I'm really thrilled to see how receptive they have been. The minister getting up there and saying we need something to happen, and we need to make sure that it happens quickly, smoothly, and building on what's already out there. And that's why we've been privileged, really, at Vækstfonden to be the channel through which all of this relief capital has, or is actually, as we speak, finding its way into the ecosystem.
Could you tell us a bit about the strategy with you as CEO? Which differences will you try to put into Vækstfonden and now that you're the CEO?
First off, I want to thank my predecessor, Christian Motzfeldt, with whom I've worked for 25 years. Learned a lot from him, learned from his vision and his experience, and participated in the building of what had become a pretty comprehensive platform. I'm keen to unleash all the potential that is embedded within that platform toward driving some long-term strategic goals and transformations, really, in the ecosystem, in the economy, in Denmark as a society. And what are those? One thing is sustainability. We've been talking about that. We started doing various initiatives and programs throughout that. That will only pick up momentum, and that will be something for the ecosystem really to expect from Vækstfonden going forward. This overriding ambition to drive sustainability all throughout the ecosystem. It's not only about green transitioning. It's certainly about that, but it's also about sustainability, responsibility, accountability, doing things the right way in a manner that is respectable and calls for respect and really drives impact. It's definitely a strategic goal to drive sustainability throughout.
You've been quoted for saying that you will have an increased focus on sustainability and impact when doing investments, both in portfolio companies and in your funds. How will you work with that? How will you look at the specifics in each portfolio company and fund?
Coming back to what I just said, this is sustainability throughout everything we do. So of course it will take different forms, be applied in different manners, depending on whether we're working with an already green company and green technologies, or we're working with a tech company, a life science company, a more traditional manufacturing or services company, because you need to acknowledge Vækstfonden is not only about entrepreneurs and venture funds. We're about that, but we're about a whole lot of other areas of interest and activity. We fund companies all across industries, all throughout Denmark, and that really puts us in a position where we can influence and drive change pervasively throughout Denmark. Given that we can learn from industries and have that feed into other industries. There's a lot of cross fertilization that we can unleash, essentially.
Will we see any sectors that will have your specific focus, or some sectors that you say we will not touch that anymore? Or would that be a specific decision from time to time?
Our mandate at Vækstfonden is all-inclusive, essentially. So any company, any area where we can drive change, stimulate innovation, generate revenue, and drive job creation, we will be there, and we will be there long term. So it's not about saying there are certain industries, certain sectors that we will pull out of to focus more narrowly on other areas. It's really about that pervasive approach. You can drive sustainability everywhere. And it's important that we do so. And of course, there are some areas that are more obvious when it comes to sustainability. Energy powering, energy consumption. There's food. The way we produce, refine, distribute, consume, and collect unused, wasted food calls for dramatic change. There's an entire value chain there where you will be seeing us diving into very deep, but not at the expense of other industries. So it's really about picking some focus areas where Denmark has some strongholds, or a path that we and others can see toward building such a stronghold.
how will you work with that actively? Will your main focus be in the investment process, or will it be like when you have invested, then you will actively work with the company? And and how will you do that? Have you any plans for that or ideas on that?
A lot of ideas, some strategies and some tactics, and then a very open mind to how we can drive that. It's very much about all the individual encounters that we have with companies. When we meet them the first time, getting to know each other, the due diligence stage toward making that investment, and then the partnership from there. All those interactions really are a great opportunity for us to have a conversation about how can we help your business model, your mindset go toward a more sustainable approach.
One never-ending discussion seems to be impact versus financials. Can you drive financial goals all together with driving impact goals as well? How do you see that? Do you see these two as two factors that go together, or as contradictions?
I see the two coming together. I see the two converging, and they have to. And luckily they are now, and more people are opening up to that. But my sense is that in some areas, in some industries, and when it comes to certain technologies, we need to take a different approach than the traditional VC approach. When you compare a tech company that's fully digitized with a software as a service model, scaling that, taking that to profitability, well, that's a completely different task from a new way to produce energy, to store energy, to deal with waste, to have that recycled and be used all over again. It's more long-term. It's more capital intensive because you need to build a plan in order to know if the technology works and all of that. So it calls for a different investment horizon, calls for a different risk appetite, but we should definitely stay focused on, and we will do that at Vækstfonden, getting into such ventures that have the potential to deliver long-term both impact and financial returns. There's no other way that we can deliver on another thing that's important to Vækstfonden, to our mandate, that of crowding in private capital. If we want private investors to start investing in some of those areas, we need to be able to demonstrate to them that even if you have to wait a long time for the returns to materialize, they will materialize, at least if we go about it in a diversified fashion. Different approaches will have to be developed, and we're developing them as we go along. But make no mistake about it, it has to be about both environmental impact, societal impact on the one side, and financial return.
So when will we see the most happy CEO of Vækstfonden? Will that be, when the portfolio company reaches its impact goals, or when it reaches the financial goals? That will be a question that is impossible to answer.
I'll have a go at it anyway. Vækstfonden is all about making a difference. The way to measure if we deliver on that is whether is to look for impact on the economy as a whole. How many jobs are created? What are the revenues generated across the companies? How many companies are created and sustained from what we do? And then because of the way we do it, we take long-term risk. We get in early. We can stay on for as long as it takes. But when we do it in a balanced way with financial instruments that create that balance between risk and reward. So when these companies actually become successful, when they have built value, then some of that value will find its way back to Vækstfonden, and then there will also be. There should be sustainable financial returns in Vækstfonden, but that's not what we're motivated by. What we're motivated by, what we're asked to do, is make that impact. And when it comes to sustainability, well, how do you measure sustainability? Well, that's down to how much CO2 is taken out of the atmosphere. To what levels can we elevate recycling rates across products and materials and all of that. So we'll have to. We are developing a broader range of impact measures to demonstrate that we're delivering on that.
Going back to one of your other success stories for the last couple of years, known in Germany as Dänische Modell, which is Dansk Vækstkapital. Could you tell us a bit about Dansk Vækstkapital? About why has that become such a big success?
Building on the experience and the partnering model that was developed in Dansk Vækstkapital 1, Dansk Vækstkapital 2, that of partnering between the government and private investors, and building a platform through which private investors can invest in a diversified manner across a portfolio of funds to invest in a large number of companies. Companies that then create value. So it's a great way to invest back into the ecosystem in a cost-efficient way because it's Vækstfonden managing all of that. Building on that experience, building on the momentum and the announcements made from the ecosystem, it was called upon for Vækstfonden to try and see if we could build a successor to that, a successor fund. And that's what we're trying to do at this moment. But then you have COVID-19 hitting even that fundraising process. So we're not quite there yet. We're still optimistic that we will get there, but it's just as hard for us as it is for other companies, other funds out there trying to raise funds. And
talking about other persons trying to establish new funds, they're all looking at you. They're all looking at Vækstfonden as saying, okay, if Vækstfonden they're in, we can probably do a fund. If Vækstfonden they are not in, it will be really, really hard time doing a fund in Denmark. How do you look? Is that a good or a bad thing? And how do you look at your role as a I wouldn't even say important player. It's more. It's like a pivotal player in the Danish market for starting new funds.
It is a role or a position within the ecosystem that we meet with great humility. The way I'd like to phrase it is really that it's not Vækstfonden calling for a DVK3, it's the ecosystem calling for a DVK3. So this is something that we need to, once again, team up to enable. And then Vækstfonden has that enabling capacity in that we're managing such a fund. And in managing that, we get some of that leveraging effect that you're talking about, where when Vækstfonden or Dansk Vækstkapital can step in as a cornerstone investor, then in many cases others follow. And they follow partly because we've built credibility over the years as an organization that really digs deep and does very comprehensive, very thorough due diligence on the funds that we invest in. And then the LPs in Dansk Vækstkapital can benefit from that, can leverage on that by just tapping into all the work that we've done. So there's a facilitating element to it as well. And that's why it's proven to be quite impactful to have an entity like Dansk Vækstkapital to invest throughout the ecosystem. And I believe that's why the ecosystem players themselves are calling for this to continue.
One last question about the Danish ecosystem and the status right now. How do you see the status and what do you see as the biggest challenges and the biggest opportunities that we have going 3, 5, 10 years into the future?
Looking back from where we were to where we had moved coming into COVID-19, quite a success story. It's much more dynamic, it's much more vibrant. We're seeing many more entrepreneurs, experienced, seasoned, repetitive entrepreneurs, serial entrepreneurs throughout the Danish ecosystem. And we're seeing them not only homegrown, but coming in from all around the world, essentially, because we have something that is quite unique, quite valuable in Denmark in a well-functioning society, and that plays a key role too. What's really important going forward is two things. One is that we navigate through this COVID-19 crisis in a way that we hold together all the momentum, all the great entrepreneurs that were on a promising track going into COVID-19. They should be so also once we come out. So the relief packages, what everyone else is doing, what we're doing right now, is all about holding onto that momentum. That's one very present challenge. Then the second challenge that we need to tackle is raising capital in large chunks throughout the Danish ecosystem, so as not only to be able to engender the creation of new companies, but actually to hold on to them and make sure that they stay here as they conquer the world and become global lighthouse companies. In order to hold on to them, we need to show a clear path to where the cornerstone capital can be raised in Denmark. And that's why we at Vækstfonden are doing all we can to pull EU money to the ecosystem, to channel that into the Danish ecosystem, to bring foreign funds to Denmark, the Danish ecosystem, and to intend to invest with the local players in order to raise sufficient funds so that we can hold on to these companies and really create some powerful impact from building unicorns out of Denmark.
And one very, very last question then. Any good piece of advice from the CEO of Vækstfonden to the Danish ecosystem?
I believe the best piece of advice I can give in the current situation is learn quickly to navigate through this crisis. Because even if it's going to last for quite some time and longer than some people think, it will pass eventually. So it's really important to do the necessary changes and adjustments to the business model, to the organization, to the strategy, in order to make it through this crisis and reach out to your investors, reach out to your funding sources, and reach out to Vækstfonden, so as to help build the capital base to do exactly that. Because we need to hold on to this great ecosystem that still had a long way to go coming into the COVID-19. It was on the right track, for sure. We have to get back to that track.
Thank you very much, Rolf. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.